where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's a boundaries coach, no other than Miss Barb Nangle.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very delighted to be here.
You're most welcome, Miss Barb. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. Yeah. So, as Daniel mentioned, I'm a boundaries coach. And in some ways, that's kind of hilarious because for the first 50 something years of my life, I did not have healthy boundaries. I was working at Yale University as a program coordinator, and I hit what's called a codependent bottom. And I can explain more about what that means if necessary. And I landed in 12-step recovery for codependence, and it actually turned my life around. And then a couple years later, I got laid off from Yale, found my way into the world of entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation in New Haven and at Yale, and started my own business. And so eventually realizing that I had to have a niche, it just made sense for me to become a boundaries coach because boundaries is the antidote to codependence.
And thank you so much for sharing your boundaries to the world, Miss Barb. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hoping for more empowering boundaries to come. So, our topic for today is all about reduce overwhelm, burnout, and turnover. Build
Mhm.
boundaries for you and your organization. So, we often use overwhelm and burnout interchangeably. From your perspective, what is a critical distinction and why is it important to address them differently?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think of overwhelm as being like things are really, really difficult, but burnout is to the point where you just cannot go on any longer. And so if you start to manage things before you get to overwhelm, you're not going to get to burnout. But if you learn how to build healthy boundaries while you're in overwhelm, you can prevent yourself from getting to burnout and then get yourself back to a healthy state where you feel like you can manage your life. I think one of the things that I was astonished by when I learned to build healthy boundaries is that I had way more control over my life than I ever thought. Daniel, I'm hearing
Yes.
my own voice echo. I'm not sure if other people are hearing that, but I can hear my voice echoing.
Okay, I will fix that, Miss Barb. So, what are the most common silent or overlooked boundary violations in a modern workplace that quietly fuel overwhelm long before full burnout hits?
I would say that people don't say, this is too much for me, or I don't have the capacity for that. I think, especially in the workplace, they don't realize that they can set limits or they don't believe that they can set limits. And they think that, I'm going to be perceived as not a team player or not pulling my weight or that I'm lazy or something like that. And I think like one of the best things you can do is like if you have the kind of boss that assigns work to you, you can say to them, this is, what you've given me is there's way too much on my plate here. Something's going to have to go or deadlines are going to have to shift. Do you want to help me decide or would you like me to make the choice? So you're letting them know, like, I want to do a good job, but this is not really possible for me to do all of this. So I think, that's the easiest intervention. And then the other thing that people don't do is, excuse me, take good care of themselves. So one way to take care of yourself is to set limits at work, but also do things that fuel you. So many of us are doing way too many things in our lives that drain us and not enough things that fuel us. So we want to do more things that fuel us and less things that drain us. So, for example, a common thing that people will do at night is go home and turn on the television or the computer screen and just kind of veg out in front of something that's mindless, and they think that they're fueling themselves, but it's actually you're not like reclaiming energy. You're just you might no longer be draining energy, but you're not claiming energy. So what fuels me might not be what fuels you, Daniel. So I do things like go for walks, do yoga, meditate. I do also veg out in front of the TV. I'm a huge Hallmark fan, and that actually gives me fuel because it entertains me. I usually have a smile on my face the whole time. I also connect with other people that bring me joy. So those are just a couple.
Very well said, Miss Barb. High turnover is often a symptom. What are the primary underlying organizational disease that you typically find when you see rampant burnout and exit?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about at the individual level, I think the number one symptom that the individual people have is that they're burning with resentment because they're just doing way too much. When it comes to the organization, it's that there's not good communication, that people are not keeping in their lane. So they might be like jumping in and helping other people or not completing their tasks. That meetings are often ineffective because people are not, sticking to like what's on the agenda, or people are having a lot of what I call parking lot meetings, or it could be, hallway meetings. Instead of bringing things to the attention of the whole group when everybody's in a staff meeting, they're bitching and complaining outside, and then like goals are not being hit. There's people call out sick for mental health days because they can't take it anymore, or they've run themselves ragged and they legitimately are physically ill because they're so overwhelmed and approaching burnout. So it's a lack of productivity and efficiency and also job satisfaction when it comes to the organizational level.
On personal boundaries and empowerment, Miss Barb, for the individual feeling crushed by demands, what is the one small non negotiable boundary they can start with tomorrow that can create a ripple effect?
So I might have said a different thing on a different day, but the first thing that pops in my mind is get a good night's sleep. Sleep is absolutely foundational to good health. And if you go to bed at a decent hour and allow yourself to get, they say is 8 hours. It's usually a little bit more for women, but allow yourself to get about 8 hours of sleep. And so instead of vegging out in front of the television at night, perhaps reading something that's pleasurable while you're in bed so that you can start to get relaxed before you go to sleep. But I would say like the general category I would say is take good care of your like your body, mind and spirit. And one of the most effective ways is to get a good night's sleep. I'm not
Yes,
hearing you
people.
up anymore.
Yes,
Okay.
people. Sleep, sleep, sleep. We need sleep.
Yes,
And
we
sleep
do. It's not a luxury.
not luxury, sleep like a baby. So, beyond saying no, what are the most effective yes and or yes if strategy for negotiating workload and protecting one's capacity?
Mhm. So I would say that, like I have a lot of those, but the first one that pops into my mind is saying, "Well, I can't do that, but here's what I can do." So you kind of, or you might say, "I can do this or I can do that." So for example, if somebody says to you, we're going to be having this event and I want you to chair the event planning committee. You can say, I'm not able to chair the committee, but I can be on the committee. Or I'm not able to chair the committee, but I can be there the night of the event for setup, to staff the event, and also for cleanup. So I call it naming the terms of the engagement. And when you do that, people are much more likely to choose one of the things that you offered rather than completely go off of what you've said and pick something entirely different. But when you name the terms of the engagement, you're much more likely to get what you want of it, and you're letting people know, like, my capacity is not this, my capacity is this, and here's what I'm willing to do. Some of the others are to pause. Like, that's one of my most effective tools, is to say, let me get back to you. So that allows you time to really think, look at your schedule, decide, like, do I have the capacity for this? And if not, then I can come back with, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. So those are two pretty effective strategies.
Interesting, Miss Barb. Thank you for sharing the strategy. How can someone realistically enforce a personal boundary when their team or boss has a culture of constant availability?
Yeah, so that, if you work in a place where the culture is constant availability, the chances of you changing the culture are very slim. And so, but you can start doing things. For example, if it's customary that everybody responds to emails over the weekend, you can simply stop responding to emails over the weekend and just start responding to them on Monday morning. And if someone says to you, I expected you to respond to that when I sent it, you can say, I did respond. I responded on Monday morning. And if you start putting in boundaries in place like this, and it becomes intolerable within the organization, you might need to think about, this is not the kind of organization that I want to work in. At the end of your life, are you going to be thinking, I wish I had answered more emails on the weekend? You're probably not. And I know that there are some industries, like healthcare pops up for me, for example, where you're on call and you have to do it. So the thing to think about in cases like that is, you chose this profession. So where can you have, like, for yourself, where can you negotiate time for yourself that you're still living a life where you can take care of yourself, do things to refuel yourself, and still, be a professional who is contributing in the way that you want to contribute. But sometimes, you can put as many personal boundaries in as you want, but sometimes they're not going to work for you in that particular workplace. And then it's time, perhaps, to seek something else, whether it's another workplace or maybe even another profession. I've known some people who've realized, I didn't know that I didn't have to live a life where I worked 7 days a week, 80 hours a week. I just was taught this is how it works. And there are plenty of opportunities out there in the world to make a decent living and feel like you're contributing without, like, pushing and grinding all of the time. It's just a matter of, like, what lifestyle do you want to live? So one of the ways that I teach clients how to do that, Daniel, is I take them through this exercise to determine their top 5 values in their life. And then they use those values as sort of like guideposts or guardrails for when and where to make decisions in their life and when and where to set boundaries. And if your lifestyle or your set of values does not conform to the workplace that you have, that's a really good indicator. I might need to go elsewhere.
Yes. Well, that is interesting, Miss Barb. Thank you for sharing that empowering answer. And what does a healthy organizational boundary look like? Can you give an example, like a policy or norm that
Yeah.
protects both the company's interests and the employee's well being?
Yeah, I would say that there's no communication outside of business hours, something like, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if you choose to communicate outside those hours, do not expect. I think also job descriptions, and making sure that, like, a job description is a boundary. When people say stay in their lane, they mean stay in the job description. And making sure that if people are continually working outside their job description, that that people are paying attention to that, they're looking at that and they're saying, oh, does this mean we need to adapt this particular job description? Does it mean we need an additional role on the team? And I think managers can really model what healthy boundaries are. One of my clients has a boss who has amazing boundaries. It's fantastic the way that he makes sure that people take their time off. That's another policy, is that, you know, you are required to take your personal time, to take your vacation time. You can't go more than, you know, X number of months without taking vacation time. So those are some examples. If you'd like, I can share more.
Let's go to the next question, Miss Barb. So
Okay.
tell us, how can leaders or leadership visibly model and respect boundaries without sacrificing performance or responsiveness? What's the first habit a leadership team should adopt?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of the things I was just talking about. So they actually take time off and they rest and relax and rejuvenate during that time. They're not working while they're on vacation. They're not working 7 days a week. They're not sending emails and text messages. Actually, speaking of text messages, if there's going to be text messaging in the workplace, then the employees should have a work phone specifically so that they can set it aside during non work hours. Same thing with the boss. Don't be available to your workers 24/7. And then also enforce the policies that are there. If you have policies about job descriptions, if you have policies about time off, or you know, like for example, some organizations will have like retreats on a regular basis, mandatorily, you know, require people to come to those retreats. So sticking to the policies and procedures of the organization is probably the best thing that a leader can do. And then secondly, modeling healthy boundaries for their employees so that it's very clear, like this is not just in name only that we have these policies and procedures. We actually mean it. And when I say I want you to take time off, I'm modeling to you like I actually mean it.
Miss Barb, tell us, what is the connection between psychological safety and the ability to upload boundaries? How do you build one to support the other?
Yeah. So I would say that now you're calling it psychological safety. I tend to use the term internal safety. And I think it's both like psychological, emotional, etc. And what I realized over time is that my building healthy boundaries was me building a sense of internal safety. And the way that worked was I started, first of all, figuring out what I liked and didn't like, what was okay and not okay, because I was such a chameleon. I really didn't know those things. And then I started showing up for myself, following through for myself, and having my own back by deciding I'm going to set a boundary and following through with it, often needing support from other people to make sure that I followed through on that. And as I did that, I built this level of trust with myself that I simply did not have before. And so I learned to really trust myself and to take care of myself. And I also learned to manage the emotions that come up, because the number one reason, Daniel, that people either don't set boundaries or they set them and they cave on them is because of the emotions that come up, typically guilt and shame. And so when you're learning to build healthy boundaries, you have to learn how to manage your emotions. That's a lot of the work that I do with clients. And so when you become emotionally available to yourself, when you develop the capacity to manage your own emotions and process your own emotions and also follow through for yourself and have your own back and show up for yourself, you're creating this sense of internal safety whereby maybe you can be rocked by things that happen to you, but you're not shattered by them. You know, like I'm solid in me and I can count on me. That's that internal safety. And when you have that, it becomes easier and easier and easier to set boundaries. So, one of the ways that I express that to people is this: I don't set boundaries, I have boundaries. I used to set boundaries as I was learning how to build healthy boundaries. And eventually they became so internalized that I just have them. I often don't even have to think about them. because there's such a part of naturally a part of me now because I have this very strong sense of internal safety.
Internal safety indeed. So, Miss Barb, as a boundaries coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
I'm sorry, what was the question? What are my what?
What will be your short term and long term goals?
Oh, as a boundaries coach for me
Yes, please.
personally,
Yes,
um,
please.
so my because I come from the world of 12-step recovery, my mission in life is to carry the message of recovery to those who still suffer. Because I'm a boundaries coach, I really focus on boundaries. So my goal is to help overwhelmed professional women say no without guilt and shame so they can finally focus on themselves and stop stressing so much what other people think. And so that's really, what I intend to do. And so my goal is to actually speak on international stages to especially professional women, organizations that serve them, associations that serve with them, so that women come to understand you do not have to continue to say yes when you really want to say no, and you get to stop neglecting yourself because you're so focused on other people. Because I really want for women to make inroads into the social structures of society. And they're not going to do that when they keep saying yes to things they don't want to do. And when they're constantly exhausted because they're neglecting themselves because they care so much what other people think.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Barb, and looking forward
Thank
for
you.
more success. And what will advice for these people?
So your audio kind of blurred out for me. I didn't hear any of what you said. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
No worries at all. So, what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Yeah. I would say the main piece of advice I share with people is to keep the focus on yourself. And what that means is to focus internally. Instead of always worrying about what is he doing, what is she doing, what are they doing, what does the situation need, what does the organization need, those are all important. But start with what's going on in here? What do I want, like, need, and prefer? What's okay? What's not okay, what fuels me, that sort of thing. So focus internally is my number one recommendation.
Thank you for that recommendation, Miss Barb. Thank you, thank you. And tell us, how do you handle the ideal worker or high performer who refuses to set boundaries, and doing so, doing the pressure the whole team to do the same?
So you're talking about, like, if you're a leader, how would you handle a subordinate that's like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So
Ideal worker.
yeah, I mean, this is where the policies and the procedures come in. Like, we have policies and procedures, and typically there's some kind of repercussions or consequences if they don't conform. So, for example, my guess is someone like that is not taking time off. So you send them home and you say, "You're not coming in, next Monday and Tuesday." So you send them home. And you also have public conversations like staff meetings where you tell everybody, including that person, the standards in this organization are that you are working Monday through Friday during work hours, that you take time off so that everybody, including that overgiver, person that's an overachiever, hears at the same time as everybody else. So that even if that person is trying to push other people to do it, they all have the same message. The boss and the policies say what you're doing is out of line here. So I hope that that answer was helpful to you.
Truly, truly helpful, Miss Barb. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. my other podcast because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101, love letters, music 101, movie 101 review are fourth season, and my Science 101, Sex 101 in its second season of my baby podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Bible Verses 101, and coming this December, Entrepreneur 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Barb, ultimately, Eve and an organization successfully builds a culture of respected boundaries. What is the tangible transformation they should expect to see their people and their output a year from now?
Yeah, I would say that job satisfaction will increase. It's hard to put a number on that, but people like morale will increase, job satisfaction will increase, sick days will decrease, communication among the team will improve, efficiency will improve. When people are staying in their lanes, then they're working in, like, if you think of it as pieces of a machine, the machine is running smoothly because people are staying in their lanes.
Yes. So, Miss Barb, tell us what is all your podcast or what is your podcast is all about?
So, my podcast is called Fragmented to Whole Life Lessons from 12 Step Recovery. There are over 300 episodes. I've been doing it for almost 7 years, and they're 10 to 20-minute episodes featuring me sharing my, we call it experience, strength, and hope in recovery. And so I am sharing what I've learned. I have over 40 episodes specifically about boundaries. A lot of what I talk about are mindset shifts. Because one of my programs is called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, I also talk about intergenerational family dysfunction, childhood trauma, reparenting yourself, and I'm basically sharing all many, many, many of the lessons I learned in recovery that I did not learn in the 37 years of therapy prior to recovery and in all of the 70 gajillion self-help books and workshops and retreats, etc. So you can listen to it on any podcast outlet, or you can go to fragmentedtowhole.com to listen. You're muted, Daniel.
Yes, Miss Barb, thank you so much. Yes, thank you for sharing your podcast to the world, and congratulations. You are 1.5% popular show globally. And tell us, can you summarize the theme of all your books?
So I have one. It's not quite done yet. And well, actually, I have two. I have an ebook, which is called The Art of the Limit. It's collected boundary wisdom from Barb Nangle. It's not on this page that you're looking at. And then the book that's in progress is the one that you're showing. It's called Roadside Recovery, One Woman's Travels and Travails on Her First Solo Road Trip. So I took a 6 week solo road trip in a camper van by myself, and the van was such a piece of shit that it broke down so many times in the first 2.5 weeks that it saw four mechanics, and the owner put over $2,000 in repairs in it, and I had to get a different vehicle. And despite all of that drama happening, I still had an amazing trip, and it has everything to do with my recovery.
Yes, that's the good thing. Amazing trip, Miss Barb. And thank you so much for sharing your podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your books to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, your podcasts, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so just go to my website, higherpowercc.com. That stands for Higher Power Coaching and Consulting.com. I have stuff for family boundaries, romantic boundaries, workplace boundaries, and personal boundaries. If you go to the My Issue Is menu, you'll find that. I also do private one on one coaching with people. Typically, they do my Unshakable You program, which is a 12-week one on one private coaching program, but I do also have smaller packages. And I have tons of free and paid content all over my website.
Yes, people visit the website of Miss Barb Nangle and support her, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Miss Barb, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Modicom people, see you soon.